because of the percentages that it has played around with in shareholding, it masquerades as a parastatal. In reality, it's not under the control of government. It's controlled by individuals. Some have got even monopoly shareholding. And as such, being a strategic organ, electricity being a strategic sector, just like roads, Kenya Power is virtually controlled by individuals, and the Kenyan state has got no mechanism for intervening in the power sector. So it will be important either for the government to take steps to renationalize Kenya Power, or to set up a serious distribution company that can carry out the mandate of Kenya Power. You'll find that even new companies coming up are hamstrung to distribute electricity because Kenya Power tends to claim that the national grid is a private property. The national grid is not a private property. It was built using taxpayers' money. And why Kenya Power should lock out its competitors from using the national grid is something that the government needs to address. We also have the question of PPAs, power purchase agreements, which are skewed against the Kenyan voter, the Kenyan taxpayer or consumer of electricity. And these are the things that have pushed the cost of power through the roof in Kenya to a point whereby we cannot compete. In supporting this motion, I call upon the government of Kenya to get serious with the question of electricity in this country. To either, and to get mechanisms for having tools with which they can intervene in the market to control and regulate the cost of power. Without doing so, we are staring at a total failure of our economy because the cost of inputs, the cost of production is bad. And if you go to some areas like Western Province and in particular in Busia, we can hardly talk of Kenya Power and lighting. We talk of Kenya Power and darkness. Because most of the time you are in the dark. It keeps on going out, it keeps on going off. Where there's a small, where you have some small shower, the lights go off. And then you also find that the way they have laid out their distribution network is such that where they are not able to localize power failure, so that if there's a small problem in one area, the entire region is cast into darkness. You wonder what their engineers are doing instead of coming up with a distribution network whereby they can isolate a local problem and deal with it, and the other sectors continue running. Mr. Speaker, sir, recently you saw the suckers around transformers that were allegedly imported into this country, and they were obsolete. They could not be deployed. Nobody has been held accountable for that. And so it looks like the cartels that are controlling electricity in this country or the power sector are untouchable. As regards renewable energy, we must realize that yes, the future is in renewable energy, but currently what we have and what is working is the forms of energy, the traditional forms of energy, which include power. So as much as we push for solar power, wind power, and for the removal of taxes in these renewable sources of energy, we must realize that a big chunk of our electricity in this country is renewable. We have electricity from geothermal, we have electricity from hydroelectric. And I think under President Kibaki, he had made a conscious effort to eliminate these private power generators, these diesel-based generators. It is the Jubilee government which brought them back. So I would urge that the government goes back to what the government of national unity did. The government of President Mwai Kibaki and the Prime Minister Raila Amolo Odinga did to rein in these private power generators who have signed very skewed PPAs, some which we pay up to 36 billion shillings a year without even getting a unit of electricity. But the contracts are there. I also think that the PPAs must be subject to Article 10 of the Constitution. There has to be transparency, there has to be public participation on the PPAs. Kenya Power cannot just sit in a dark room with somebody, sign a PPA, and condemn Kenyans to pay. Right now, Mr. Speaker, sir, if you look at your bill for power, it clearly shows that you pay a very small fraction for the power you consume. The rest is going to make some people rich. And it is not acceptable that under the cover of the law, Kenyan taxpayers and Kenyan consumers of electricity are exploited. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I stand to support the motion and pray that it passes. Thank you.
Honorable Senators, I have